Welcome, NFL football fans, to the IDP Plus Trends Podcast, the first ever episode. My name is Gary, aka the IDP Tipster on the X, and we're going to be covering the free agency 2024 linebackers IDP ranking tiers. All right, we're going to set them up for you, and I'm excited, really excited to introduce my co-host in this venture that we're going to be coming to you on a weekly basis with my friend Johnny Christophe. I've had a pleasure of talking to this gentleman for the last few weeks, man, and I've got to sit back and watch him do some guest spots on some podcasts here at the IDP Plus IDP Guys Network. And he's potentially right now, he's my breakout call analyst this year. Right now, this is a gut call. All right. And Johnny, I'd like you to go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself. And then I'm going to let y'all know these are his IDP rankings. And I'll tell you what, I loved them in these tiers. So we're going to let him take it from there.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be on and a pleasure to get to know you two over these last couple of weeks. I look forward to hopping on and dropping some knowledge, and you gave me a big name to live up to, but I appreciate that. I think I'm the sleeper of the year too. You can rock with me. I've been on there since 2018. I'm at Johnny freaking F1. I will share that with you in the comments here. But I've been playing fantasy football since 2010, since I was a sophomore in high school. Been playing IDP for over a decade now, since 2012, and really came a long way of where I started to where I am now. One thing about me is I'm a heavy tackles guy. I'll let you know that right now. But big IDP guy, big redraft, dynasty, sleeper app, Yahoo, all that. So if you don't follow me already on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. I'll show you some love back. And I'm here for your questions. If you have start sit questions, pick up questions, let me have it. Let it rip, because I'll get back to you quick. I only got 500 followers, but like Gary said, hey, breakout of the year. That's going to lift up real quick. So we're going to go ahead and get into the rankings. But before we do that, I want to let you know, if you are in some fantasy leagues yourself, if you haven't got a trophy yet, it's not too late. If you were thinking about maybe a loser's trophy, if you were a kind-hearted commissioner yourself, go to trophysmack.com if you haven't heard of it already. They have a great selection of trophies, of belts, looking like WWE, looking like Triple H coming off that win of your championship league. But if you use the promo code IDP guys, when you buy a trophy or a belt yourself, you get a free ring from Trophy Smack with that purchase. Once again, promo code IDP guys for that free belt or trophy. I'm sorry, for that free ring when you buy a belt or trophy. So with that, we're going to make our way into the coveted linebackers of free agency here. Now, I want to ask you, Gary, when we compiled this list for our listeners' purpose, we're talking about dynasty here. We're not talking about redraft. So there were guys that you're not going to hear us talk about. And do you want to go ahead and say why that was? What was our criteria?
From the jump off, man, I kind of capped it off at 5 years in aspect. So I went in and I basically took out all the 29-year-old guys and older out of this list. I think it might have even been 28, but after you seen the list and we knew that you was the guy presenting this, you had a couple that you wanted to switch in and out because you've seen potential for them. So if you're looking for some of these older guys like Bobby Wagner or something, those guys especially are hitting 30. I think Jordan Hicks was one of them or something that'll be a free agent. You're not going to see them in this tiers here. We're actually going to be doing tier 2. So check that out. The episode is going to be coming out basically right after this one. So within days. So make sure you check that out. But with that, man, we'll hit up your first one, I think.
Yeah, the first one's going to be Patrick Queen. Big name here in free agency. He just finished his 4th season as of yesterday with that loss in the conference championship. Now, Patrick Queen, only 24 years old, has a great track record, great trajectory to his career. We're expecting him to be the main staple here of this free agent group, are we not, Gary?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I had to put, if there was a pony that I was buying into and putting my odds on, it'd have to be Patrick Queen, just out of this year's class, age wise, and how he actually got better his last year. He worked towards a contract, but we have some other people that kind of didn't live up to the hype.
That's right. Actually, 2023 this year. He set his career highs in tackles with 133. Not only did he do it with the tackles, he had 6 pass breakups, 3.5 sacks, a pick. I mean, we're talking about a guy who in 4 years has 13.5 tackles at the inside linebacker position. I'm a tackle heavy guy. I've said that, but not only looking at the tackles here, this guy does it all. In 4 years, he has 37 tackles for loss. We're talking about a guy who has over 450 tackles in 4 years. So that's over 100 a year, right? 110 or 15 a year. So that's tremendous. I mean, it's a shame that he might leave this team, because right now what we've seen is just so fruitful for our IDP community, right? Him in this great situation. Do you think it could be better if he goes somewhere else? Do you think he could land in a better situation than he is in Baltimore?
Well, I got a feeling, he's earned his way into somebody's going to offer him a nice contract, something that Baltimore, after paying Roquan Smith what they did this past offseason in the trade, they got a lot of money wrapped up into this. And to be honest, Baltimore, they've never been well known to go and get big free agents or make big free agent moves on the inside linebacker situation, whether or not they're their draft prospect or not. I mean, it was since Ray Lewis. If you look past, we've had guys. What was the guys? Patrick Orr. Just a bunch of free agents or depth guys. I can't remember the long-time Cincinnati dude who just basically faded away within the last couple of years. They've just never been up on it until they recently, when they did draft Patrick about 4 years ago, and then they got Malik Harrison, I believe, in like the second or third round too. That looked like that's about their most aggressive move they've made, until the Roquan Smith move. And I want to say too that actually helped Queen a lot, getting Roquan Smith in there. And I know Roquan Smith would help to everybody, but it especially helped him because if Patrick Queen had any struggles, it was shedding blocks and defending the run up in the box so much. He's a hellacious pass rusher. He's got pressure presence like you wouldn't believe, and he's a sideline to sideline coverage guys. But I think personally in this position, if another team is looking at him, they should look at him more as a weak side inside linebacker instead of a Mike linebacker type run stopper. Not saying that in some formats or some schemes that he couldn't fit in that way, but I'm just saying in an overall aspect, I think he's done a lot better not being set as stone in that box. And if we think about it, if Patrick Queen would resign, what about Kyle Hamilton's full breakout? How hard is that to trust at times, thinking of these 3 guys all in that box together?
Sure. They got, and they have big names to resign too. They have Justin Matabike, defensive tackle. They have Geno Stone. You mentioned, and I believe I don't think it's this year, but in the upcoming years, Kyle Hamilton, they want to lock him up, right? Other guys that take maybe a precedence when you can get, like Gary said, he made a good point, Zach Orr. They had LJ Fort there for a while, right? They cracks really well in Baltimore, and I don't know that this is a position that they want to throw all that money at when they have that track record that they do, right? Why log jam this and hurt yourself in other aspects? Justin Matabike, what he did this year was incredible. The defensive tackle, he's only 25, 26 himself, so they have tough choices to make, but I'll tell you what.
They just got them paying Marcus Williams big money to play free safety for him too.
Right. He hasn't too much.
If they take Queen out of this system and fill him in there with some free agent or a rookie, or say maybe they keep Harrison and give him a shot to play that, anything along that line. If they lose Queen, they'll still survive with Roquan Smith being in there and Hamilton, right? But if they lose Matabike on that interior defensive line, I think it changes the whole dynamic of that defensive line, and I think that they have to see that. Matabuki is a great guy. He was a huge boost for them. So I could see where that could come into the decision for him. What do you think?
I definitely think so too. I mean, they can lock up Matabuke. He's had a great year. You know, the stats speak for themselves. He's a young guy. That's the anchor of their defense, right? Is that line. Like I said, track record just speaks for itself. Too much success finding that patchwork. Maybe they go to a 1-year deal. Maybe they find a guy. I don't have him on this list, but like David Long. I can see that. David Long Jr. from Miami, you know, signed him to a 1-year contract, somebody that doesn't cost much, but, you know, it is somebody who has veteran experience. I could definitely see that. So I don't think for me, you know, he doesn't get my seal of approval on the re-sign either. Patrick Queen, man, he just did too good. You know, he brought himself too much leverage at this point, I think, for them to, as much as they, you know, Baltimore does not want to let him go, but all 17 games this year, he played a career high 1,073 snaps, career year for Patrick Queen. You know, he's a shoo-in. He's a money in the bank LB1 to me. I'd like to, you know, see him stay. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe there's some teams out there that can make it splash on him. Hopefully he goes to a team that there's a lot of room for tackles, because I'd like to see him keep putting up LB1 numbers myself.
Yeah, there's a few out there. I mean, you're looking at Seattle's got 2 free agents. Tampa Bay's got 2. Yeah, we got a few to talk about here.
Maybe they have a lot of space. I mean, that could be a landing spot. They might re-sign Khaleke Hudson and Cody Barton there themselves. I mean, I know definitely Philadelphia is looking for a linebacker. I don't know if that's within their price range, but they're going to do something themselves. So there's teams out here that can make a splash, and Patrick Queen, I think, at this position is the guy that you want to go ahead and do that. You know, it's not investment where you don't know what you're going to get your return. The numbers speak for themselves. The type of player, the doubts, any doubts about health, or I don't think they're there. You know, age is not a concern at all. So, you know, it's tough to say, is he going to be better than on this next contract? I don't know. Is that ever the case? Though? But the guy earned his bag. He deserves to go somewhere and get paid. And I don't know how bitter he's taking this loss, you know, for the Super Bowl. Maybe he says we're that close. I want to come back. Maybe he takes it the other way and is sour taste in his mouth. But Patrick Queen, I don't think it gets much better at the number 1 spot. You know,
and if he goes, I think you know, just as a dime drop, we'll keep an eye on Malik. What do you think? Keep an eye on what they do with Malik Harrison, possibly with his draft stock from a few years ago. If they get him re-signed at a cheaper price, he knows the system and such. And then, I mean, just realistically, kind of probably watch what the free agency, see what kind of move they make here. But we know they'll stick anybody in there they like. Harbaugh like them. It doesn't matter what the rest of us think of them. Believe that.
It's LJ Ford, you know, whoever it is, Nick Vigil, doesn't matter. So, I mean, that number 2 spot probably does give value next year as well.
Right.
Yeah. But
all right, man. Well, what do you think? We got another one to talk about here in Tier 1?
Yeah, let's go with another name here. Another young, fruitful linebacker we've seen over the years, and that's Jordyn Brooks from Seattle. You already mentioned him and Bobby Wagner were both free agents. Do you think there's a chance that they bring back one, they bring back both? What do you think the mindset is there with the new head coach, new regime?
Well, since you asked me straight out, I guess the reason, you know, they got Devin Bush there, which I know that they didn't use that much this year. But, I mean, he's under contract for this year. And if they're looking for a stopgap to move on from Brooks, who's 26, granted, he had a fairly good year. He's coming off an injury. Matter of fact, I think it was a serious Achilles injury, possibly, or something.
Yeah, he had that ACL.
ACL, right.
As crazy as that injury was, he tore that ACL in January and came back and started. I mean, I drafted him. You know, people were like, "Why did you Jordyn Brooks?" I mean, I had faith in him and showed up from day one. You know, they played a lot of nickel and dime sets. I was putting up stats like if you had him in fantasy, you're getting 20s early on, especially, and then. If you really go look at those numbers, the snaps weren't there. I mean, it was 80%. It was like low 80s, even 70s, high 70s sometimes. So I'm like, wow, you know, he's really getting it. And then he kind of fell off. He had an ankle injury late in the season.
Right.
It was his career worst, 21 missed tackles. That's 16. I'm sorry. He had career worst, 21 missed tackles, 16.5% missed tackle rate. So a little bit of a red flag there. But
anything over 10% is kind of a
exactly. Yeah, he was well above it. But at the same time, Gary, we're talking about a player, young player in 2023 received the 5th best pass rush grade, which was an 85 off ball linebackers, right? And so to me, if you're a numbers guy, if you believe in PFF, maybe you forgive Jordyn Brooks and all stats included, I do forgive him personally. We're talking about a guy who just two years ago led the league in tackles, right? In tackles. Yep. So I personally think there's no way they let him go. There's no way they let him anchor their defense. Maybe they free up cap elsewhere and kind of make a little bit more additional money there. But to me, if I'm Seattle, new regime or not, I do not let Jordyn Brooks go, and
it would make more sense. I don't know what their books look like exactly, but I mean, they actually might be able to get Bobby Wagner back on another cheap contract if he feels like he's got another year in him. Now, it may all hinge off of what they do with Leonard Williams too. They made a trade for him, and he's a free agent himself, the big interior defensive lineman there, and he deserves a big contract from somewhere. And I wouldn't think they'd make the trade if they hadn't planned on keeping him. So they got a lot of decisions to be made. I would think that, considering that he did stay healthy for the most part after his injury, and they probably would be better off for the next 2 to 3 years with Brooks, leading the way, maybe do some drafting. But it's so hard to tell what they're going to do with Pete Carroll gone and how they're going to approach this with the new coach.
Yeah. And you know what? You made a good point, too, with that Leonard Williams. They traded, I want to say, a 2nd-round pick for Williams. You probably want to show better on that trade than to downplay his role or fade him. So Leonard Williams, I mean, they really want to make good with what they did there. But I also agree, we're not talking like a 4-year re-up here. We're talking maybe 1 or 2 years. Say, hey, Jordyn, you're going to go get that bag. You're going to go get your contract. Stay here. It's a good situation for you. Pad those stats. Show last year wasn't a fluke. And at that point, who knows? So I think this is a 1 or 2 year contract, a low amount for him. Maybe give him, what his market is. A couple $1 million per year and address it next year and see where you're at.
Nice. Yeah. And if he goes, like I said, I did say something about Devin Bush. I mean, he's not the best option in the world, but production by default does play into the game that we love to play. So you can definitely look his way until they probably would draft somebody. I don't know what they would do at this situation.
Seattle, Cody Barton. Who knows?
Yeah, because he's probably not returning to Washington, which will hit at some point in time.
All right, Jordyn Brooks, Patrick Queen, we knocked out. Let's go to another young linebacker here who had a great career year, signed to a 1-year deal, and that deal ended this year. So he made great on it. Azeez Al-Shaair from Tennessee. Azeez Al-Shaair, I think if any team is looking for an early down thumper, somebody to be a great run support guy, I think that's the way they look here. I don't think he's going to, break the bank necessarily. I think he's a modest player. Maybe re-signs. I think Tennessee maybe look to re-sign him. He's only 26. Like I said, 2023 was a career year for him with 163 tackles. He did have 2 sacks, but that was, to this point in his career, that was a low light for him. So it was nice to see him get on the board with 2 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. I'm just putting throwing that to the side and saying, he wasn't a starter in San Francisco at all the time. Those first 2 or 3 years, they had Fred Warner, they had Dre Greenlaw. So, that wasn't his role. So yeah, but I really like what he did this year, the season that he had. Says he loves to be back. What a lot of these players, who doesn't, right? It's a pipe dream.
Right.
Nice to say you love him back, but I think he's the anchor there, to be honest. I mean,
they love him.
they love him. They love him there. He loves the situation. He loves being in the South. Did a lot of great things this year, tied career highs, matched career highs. So I really like Azeez Al-Shaair to stay here. I think it's a really fruitful spot for fantasy production, just like we saw this past year. They have maybe some other guys that they're looking to re-sign too, but I don't think, this is a 4 or 5 year contract. You have to invest in him, maybe 2 or 3 years, something like that. What would you say?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, somebody might fall in love with him enough. He has showed, enough play being with the 49ers. He had some good film for quite a few games there the last couple seasons. Not his last season with the 49ers, but the prior when Fred Warner and it was going through some injuries, and Drew Greenlaw was too. I mean, he's got some good film, and I like him to stay in Tennessee myself. And I think that what happens here is he's been LB1 quality guy, but kind of on the lower end this year. And we could probably see a step going forward, being more comfortable in the defense next year if they do re-sign him. I think Tennessee could probably convince him to stay for a modest, $6 to $8 million a year kind of contract for a few years. But he's also another one. Don't be shocked somebody come in there and swooped in, because as a run defender, he's killing it. And he's not bad in coverage, So, but again, looking at the aspect that the guy's done nothing but prove himself up to this point, it's just to be another step. I would just rather see that stay in Tennessee for that step instead of having to go learn another system or something, or get thrown into a different situation, perhaps. I think I hope he stays. What do you think?
I think he does stay. I'm hoping he stays. I think it's a great, landing spot for him, even though he wouldn't have to leave. I think there's tackles to be made here, and that's really what he does well. He's the guy in the middle there, and a great leader and a great teammate for them. And he really loves, what they've got going on there. And despite, losing their head coach and ending the season on a sour note. But I do think Azeez Al-Shaair, especially in tackle heavy leagues, he's somebody that shows, has shown over time he can be a solid LB2 with upside and solid floor. He's a sure tackler. 163 tackles over this season. That's near the top. That's near the top. So I really like him a lot. I think that he's definitely somebody, whether it be on Tennessee or another team he goes to, he's what type of player you're getting, right? And somebody who's fruitful for tackles, and that's what you're looking for in a linebacker. So Azeez Al-Shaair, here's our route to hope you stay, hope you re-sign, because you're doing great things. You're doing great things.
The only other one that I think I could lock him in that I feel pretty good about was maybe if he went to Washington or something, replace Cody Barton there.
Yeah, I could see
that would be a nice one.
I agree. They definitely have the money for it. Okay, we'll roll into our next linebacker. This one could be on 5, middle of the tier. This one could be the best tier, the worst, anywhere in between. But we're going to talk about Devin White. Devin White from Tampa Bay, someone with elite athleticism, someone that puts pressure on the quarterback at all times, right? Had a down year this year, big time down year, to the point where he was scratched. He was benched versus the Green Bay Packers in Week 15 in a pivotal game. Didn't start 2 playoff games. Are we worried about Devin White as a player, or are we willing to sweep this year under the rug?
No, I'm not. He asked for a trade, didn't get it. Was kind of whiny, babyish about it, and then didn't come out and prove anybody wrong. And he's, looking at his career, it's his draft stock. He's been almost, I can't say a bust, but just didn't live up to the draft stock or the draft hype and, overall aspect. So personally, I'm not sure if he earned a big contract. I do think that he's going to be playing somewhere else because, Tampa Bay's probably washed their hands of him after the fact. But, where that is, I don't think I understand he's got to be here in the top tier because opportunity means anything. And he's still a beast in his own sense, but it's not somebody it's in this tier 1 that I'm excited about checking into.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, don't forget, Gary, we're talking about a guy's rookie year, 2.5 sacks, 149 tackles, 5 quarterback hits. Second year, 2020, he had 140 combined, 128 the year after, 124 last year. We barely saw him get over 100 this year. It projects down, I'll give you that. But, do you think that the early season success, the early career success, you're not giving him his flowers? Or do you think that, this year, what we saw should be expected going forward?
I'm kind of a prove it type dude. So we were talking about Patrick Queen Patrick Queen had his best season too in his fourth season, and it still wasn't quite elite. You know what I mean? He was graded very well. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, it took him some stages to get here. With Devin White hitting a wall this year, I think it stifled it for me. And I don't know. I kind of feel like it's going to not, he doesn't have the ceiling that he would have had if he would have had a better season and was better in coverage. I mean, the guy was brought in as a coverage dude, and he across the board, PFF just hated him. And not to quote PFF and ride on that, but the guy just realistically had to work out. If he goes, where would you even think about where could he possibly fit in well?
Shoo. I mean, you know what? It's a shame because he didn't ball out. I think if he did have a great season, he'd end up with a splash deal, something big time. But you know what? I just don't see it for him. I think it's going to be, a 1-year deal, whether it be a re-sign and 1 year prove it, put your money where your mouth is, or if they are
Philadelphia signing for cheese.
I could see I could see Philadelphia. They need playmakers there. Another guy on this list that we haven't mentioned yet is a similar type of player, somebody that can rush the quarterback, rush off that edge, shoot the gaps in the middle. So he is somebody that can do that, and that's my intrigue with him is maybe this is a change of scenery and he gets back to where he was. Right. We're talking about a guy who's still 24, 25 years old. He's not old by any means, and a great prospect.
He's not broke down. He's not wore out either.
Right. Yeah. Do you think? Yeah. I think that personally, he can go somewhere and find that spark. But I'll say with a grain of salt, I'm not banking on it. Right? You can't bank on that. That's if it's the right spot. If it's a prove it contract, maybe he has a little bit more fire under him. But to me, I'm not saying this is a player you're targeting an IDP right away. No, but don't forget about the things that he did earlier in his career. Would you be on the same page with me? Yeah. So Devin White, I think Philly is a great landing spot. They had Hassan Reddick there, had a down year. Maybe they want to bring some rush defense. And I think he helps. His athleticism helps. Maybe they look at him like a project, and I don't know many ties there. If he has any ties to any coaching or other players, but that's an interesting tidbit too. But I would like to see him go to Philly. I think that's a good landing spot. Frankie Luvu, let me drop this stat on you, okay? 2023, these were the linebackers to have 100 tackles and 5 sacks, okay? Frankie Luvu's on that list. Actually, he's on the list for 2022, but let me give you 2023 first. 100 tackles and at least 5 sacks from the linebacker position this year gave us Terrell Bernard, Demario Davis, and I'll throw a bonus in there at safety. Antoine Winfield was also on that list, and Frankie Luvu. That's pretty good company, right?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
2022, Drew Tranquil, Donovan Wilson, again, a safety. Demario Davis, Bobby Wagner, Devin White, Patrick Queen, and Frankie Luvu. And then in 2021, only Eric Kendricks did it. But players that get you 100 tackles, over 5 sacks, over both, I'm very interested in. And he's kind of somebody who breaks my mold because I'm looking at the Patrick Queens. I'm looking at the tackles. And he's somebody who can get him in the bunches. He had 19 tackles in a game this season. So he does do that in splashes. But he's somebody who goes kind of under my radar because he's not, all sacks, all tackles. He's a little bit of both. But in fantasy football, IDP, that's a great problem to have.
The one thing he has a bonus going for him to think about anywhere, even to 3 to 5 years. See, 27, yeah, even to thinking into 31 to 32 years old, if the guy stays healthy, is he just become something in the last 2 seasons. So he
Definitely.
does not have that wear and tear from earlier on. He played a lot of special teams. He was one of those actually free agent under the radar signings just a couple of years ago when he signed with Carolina. Nobody noticed it. It was signed for beans at the time, and it was looked more as a special teams move because of his history coming to it. So I love it. I mean, he should have the stability to get, or the stamina to go ahead and make it through here to make it even worth that 5 years. Definitely 3.
Sure. And we're talking about a guy since 2022. So over the past 2 years, he's had 43 pressures, right? Off the off-ball linebackers of that, rankings in the off-ball linebackers. That's 4th. That's good for 4th. The same stat over the last 2 years, 9.5 sacks, right? That's good for 1st for off-ball linebackers. So he's somebody at his position. He kind of flies under the radar, but he's really good at what he does. And I think that tenacity, if he can bring that to another team, because I don't think he's resigned in Carolina, that's another like Philly type of signing right there, where I think that would be great for them, And honestly, I think it would be fruitful for fantasy purposes too, especially if you're playing in more sack heavy leagues. I think he's somebody who you're targeting, right? Somebody who's not, you're not going to have to pay that heavy price tag on, not a Roquan Smith, not a Foyer type of draft investment, but somebody who deserves a lot of intrigue, a lot of attention to.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, so I like him a lot there. I like Frankie Luvu. I think he'll have a good format, good base for fruitful for IDP wherever he goes. I don't think it's going to be like a part-time signing. It's his show now. He's earned that. Almost like how you said, start off on special teams, Zaire Franklin kind of vibes,
Yeah. They got him. They got him and Brian Burns to deal with. It'd probably be easier for them to sign Frankie Luvu and tag Burns at this point. So I think Carolina might try to make a little bit of a bid to keep a hold of him, though.
They should, right? They definitely should.
Yeah. Either way, I think he's one of those types of free agents that you have to worry less about where they sign. They're probably going to work out wherever they land.
Right. But sometimes the grass doesn't always get greener, right? And we've seen him do great things the past couple of years in Carolina. Hopefully that continues no matter where it is, But he is an anchor of that Carolina defense. They do have to watch him walk out that door if that's the route they choose. So that's a lot to give up. I'd like to see Frankie Luvu back. But like you said, Gary, you made a good point. No matter where he goes, the type of player he is, how he grades out, he should be fine, more than fine.
Nice. Let's hit this last one, brother. It's been a great tier to talk about this year.
And the last one for this tier, on tier 1, is going to be a guy who showed promise as a rookie, kind of faded, we forgot about him in the IDP community, but then had a resurgence this year. He's still young, 24 years old right now, 25, I'm sorry. And that's linebacker for the Chargers, Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray, he had a career year. He had 107 total tackles, 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. His problem to me, being a first rounder, he actually is 24 years old, but his biggest problem to me though is that inability to show up at least on the stat sheet as far as like sacks and tackles for loss. That rookie year, we saw stability there. We saw the tackles. That was a welcoming sight. Then he faded last year. Injuries kind of attributed to that. He is a sure tackler. Do you think that Chargers, all the problems they have going on, this is somebody who they can, re-sign, or do you think he might have, because of the age, because of the 2 good years he had, somebody that goes on and gets a contract elsewhere?
After seeing what they did to Drew Tranquill last year, no, I don't think they're going to go fighting to re-sign him. I don't think they're going to offer him anything until they find out what, his market is out there, because his market will be so borderline. I think it'll have to be a team that actually likes him for one particular reason or not. He does struggle as a playmaker, as you mentioned, and at the same time, he's not. He might be coming off his best season, but it also was a payday season. So he didn't excel to elite. Him and Kendrick struggled in coverage, and they weren't ranked very well in that aspect. So I'm only so impressed. But again, we're looking at his age as a combination to make sure, because we are talking about tier 1, and again, opportunity anywhere else could change the whole scenario in a heartbeat. So we're still looking at these free agents by, the combination of their age, their skill set, the year that they are coming off of, and the opportunity. We'll be regrouping around on these guys to let you all know too. But do you have a preference if he goes, or, best fit?
You know what? Kenneth Murray, to me, I still like him as a project. I still like him, career-wise. I think when we look at teams who are looking at linebackers, it's the thing we have to consider is what's going to be their move. Or are they going to re-sign guys? I mean, there's teams out there with a lot of cap room. Let me give you some examples. Washington leads the way. Are they going to bring back Hudson? Are they going to bring back Cody Barton? Still got Jamin Davis. We got Tennessee. Are they going to bring back Azeez Al-Shaair, right? If they do, probably don't get him. Kenneth Murray, that is. If they don't, now he's in question there. Patriots have a lot of cap money. Is that going to be a team that, tries to continue on what Bill Belichick has laid out there, or do they go the opposite way and grab some new guys there? Because that's a good landing spot for a linebacker. Houston Texans.
There are plenty. You're dropping all these dimes on these teams that need linebacker. I mean, you could even look at Arizona. You can look at Tennessee. Even if they get Al-Shaair back, I mean, you need a second interior dude. Gibbons didn't get it done. They have this habit. Some of these teams are having this habit of putting in a rotation of some average or just barely on par guys and putting them in, on the downs that they're good at. They need to change that culture. So there could be an opportunity for somebody like Murray to sign a decent little deal and fit in there and fill that need, because that's one of the situation where he's definitely the better option, So, I mean, Arizona, you look at them, Devin White should be back, but they need a second guy. Barnes wasn't all that. Neither was Josh Woods. They struggled across that whole defense. So, but just to drop a few, there's a lot of motion that's going to be coming into play here as soon as we have free agency, which I think was February 20th?
I think so.
Yeah. Love it, man.
Yeah, so those are our top tier. We got Patrick Queen, Jordyn Brooks, Azeez Al-Shaair, Devin White, Frankie Luvu, and finally Kenneth Murray for our top 6, our first tier for linebackers during this offseason, free agent linebackers. Once again, we are adhering to dynasty rankings here. This is no redraft. So I'm glad you got to get in our heads here. It was nice conversation, nice tier 1 breakdown. Let's take a break and we'll get to tier 2. What do you say, Gary?
Yeah, and y'all just found out why I told you that he's potentially my breakout call for 2024. Right, so we're going to catch you on the tier 2 free agency inside linebacker IDP ranking tiers shortly. We'd like to see you on the next episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.
Thank you for watching this IDP Guys video. If you like this content and you want more fantasy football content, click here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos to help you master your IDP league, click here to subscribe.